The following podcast may contain spoilers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Treading the Path of Heaven, your favorite web novel, Chinese, Korean, Japanese reviewing podcast out there. I'm your host, Jonathan Kinney.
And I'm Richard.
And we have a novel I'm pretty excited about today, which is the second in a series written by Tang Sanshao, which is Soul Land 2, The Unrivaled Tang Sect. I'm going to say up front here that the books are not like super related because it takes place 10,000 years after the first one. But there are some kind of fundamental things that will kind of get spoiled just by talking about the events of this book. So if you really want to read Douluo Dalu and don't want any spoilers, or you don't want spoilers for this book, this is probably not a great episode to listen to. That being said, I'm going to try and, avoid some. There's definitely a lot of more cool stuff that I'm talking about in this book. So,
I mean, Douluo Dalu is definitely a story. The first book, the first one into, I think there's 3 now, right?
I think there's 4, and the 4th one hasn't been translated. There's also technically a 2.5 and a 3.5.
That's a lot of Soul Land. That's a whole lot of Soul Land.
3 is currently being translated on Wuxia World and hasn't been finished, although it certainly feels like it's gearing up towards the end. But 1 and 2 have both been completely translated. 2 on Wuxia World as well. 1 I know you can find at Blue Silver Translations. I think there may have been another group that translated as well, because I think it was Bagel-san was the translator at Blue Silver Translations, and it took him like 6 years to translate a 336 chapter book.
Well, I mean, how long are the chapters? They're long chapters, right?
Oh, they're super long chapters. Like and this is partially about how the author writes. Like, he tends to write chapters that have like 5 parts, like 3 to 5 parts, and those parts are as long as like 1 or 2 other chapters in other books, depending on which one you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you just like triple or quintuple the chapter, like in another book, it probably would have been like 1,800 chapters, but still, it's an excellent book. But yeah, like I said, this one deals with 10,000 years after that one. In the first book, a basic idea of this story is that this takes place in a continent called the Douluo continent. It is also translated as Soul Land, is kind of like the English title for it. And if you're looking for it on Wuxia World, you will have to search Soul Land 2 and not Douluo Dalu 2.
Is that, out of curiosity, is that done for legal reasons, or is it like...
Honestly, I have no idea. This was officially... I mean, this was licensed from Chidian to be on Wuxia World, at least.
So that it's official.
It might be something with that. But it's pretty consistent about using the same, like, terms. Like, there's different ranks of power in this based on how many soul rings your character has absorbed. And like each of those tiers have different names, and they use the same names between the first book and this book. Like, the people that were writing it, I think, borrowed the terms that were originally used.
So it's written by the same guy. It's in the same world, same cultivation. Has anything changed to the cultivation, or is the stuff from the previous? Do you really need to know the stuff from the previous novel to get into the sequel? Or
you could read this as your first Douluo Dalu book. There's nothing that's stopping you from doing that. However, I do think it is a much richer experience if you have read the first book. They will explain all of the new systems and all the stuff to a new reader. It's not going to leave you knowing stuff. But if you have read the first book and you know things like anyone who has a white ring is like a garbage soul master because they're from 10-year spirit beasts, and your like first ring can be like 423 years old. So if you're catching something that is between the ages of 10 and 99, like you either don't have backing or you have no potential, or both.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember from the previous time we went over this, can you replace your first ring? Like, if you say you got a crap ring the first time.
No, whatever ring you have is the ring you have, barring circumstances like divine power changing shit for you.
So yeah, you got a 10-year ring, you're trash. Like you're just trash.
Yeah, your guard. Well, I mean, rings have like all sorts of. They are one of the main parts of this series. They sorry, I'm also watching the Douluo Dalu Donghua, and they use slightly different terms. So if I say something that's not from the book, I do apologize. Brief explanation: everyone in this world is born with what the book calls a martial spirit or a martial soul. And these martial souls generally fall into one of two types. There are beast martial souls, which it's not a perfect parallel, but you can kind of think of them as like Zoan masters from One Piece or Zoan fruit users, where like they gain characteristics of a beast and become a lot stronger and faster. They're in this, their bodies don't like physically change most of the time. There are some exceptions, but they gain all the like strength and power, and then as things go on, maybe can summon like a form of them.
So is it like, you have the phoenix, the properties of a phoenix, so you can, come back from the dead or regenerate wounds and stuff?
No, it's more like you have a phoenix. Well, what you can do depends on what soul rings you get. And that's a thing I'm going to go into shortly here. But what your martial soul gives you is like, if you're a phoenix, you're going to be able to kill like fire attributed beasts or bird attributed beasts, or things that kind of in an obtuse way line up with what a phoenix should be able to do. If you try and stray too far away from that, you can have like cultivation deviation and, go anywhere from becoming a cripple to explode. So people try to avoid that. But you would probably get like, there's actually a person in the first book who has the phoenix martial soul. And like his first ability is he can shoot fire, but his fire is like way hotter than normal fire and is also like sticky. At some points it's said to like burn water kind of stuff.
Oh, so it's just casual cultivation napalm.
Yeah, it is terrifying, horrible fire. Fatty, you were a good character. It kind of determines, so like, but it's a bird, so you're probably somewhere along the way going to be able to get a skill to fly. But like all your skills are probably going to be either flight or fire attributed or like talons. Like it's all going to be stuff that relates to a phoenix is how your skills show themselves. But if Douluo Dalu 1 was JoJo's Part 3 where stands are introduced and they're trying to establish like the basic rules, Douluo Dalu 2 is JoJo's Part 4 where they're like, let's get fucking weird with it. Because soul rings are established like as you're going up in strength, like the higher up in cultivation you go, and it's like literally like 100 level system. Every 10 levels you can absorb a ring. But the higher up you go, the more it takes to cultivate to the next level, as always. Once you get up to the high end, it's like grows exponentially in that regard. And then there are different ranks of soul beasts. Soul beasts are based on their age. So there are 10-year soul beasts, 1,000-year soul beasts, 10,000-year soul beasts, 100,000-year soul beasts. And then in the second book, we kind of get into... They had 1 million-year spirit beast in the first book, but it's more important in the second book.
Did they proliferate in the second book? There's just way more million-year spirit beasts?
No, there's only one in the second book, but he is very relevant to the plot. But million years are really hard to do because spirit beasts have to endure heavily tribulation every 100,000 years, and it's like real fucking rough.
Oh, I mean, I guess they grow in power every tribulation. I guess they get like Dow marks or something.
That is true, but like this is a thing that is maybe happening to like 15 spirit beasts in the world, so it's not like a hugely relevant effect. Because if you can get 100,000 year spirit ring, like that's what you want. It doesn't matter how many 100,000 years it is. It's better if it's more, but also if you're fighting a 700,000 year spirit beast, he's probably going to murder you.
I mean, that's a given, right?
Yeah,
that's a given. I mean, I guess if all of these soul masters are collecting all of these 10,000, 100,000, whatever, 10-year, whatever, how are the spirit beasts like maintained? Are they just generated by nature? Like,
no, they're born. They were like the rulers of the world originally. And then humans, by developing as soul masters, kind of recently took over to be the main power of the world in like the first book.
So humans are like a deep minority.
Yeah, or they were. They have grown a lot bigger in the second book because they've had 10,000 years to develop upon the principles of soul mastery that were like learned and developed in the first book and in the preceding 10,000 years. But like it the first book teaches you the weight of what all these soul rings are. Like one of the things that's separated the main character of the first book apart from his peers was that he got a black ring as his fourth ring, which everyone thought that a purple ring was the absolute limit for your fourth ring up until he got a black ring. And it was like such a significant deal that it like basically led them, among a few other factors, to be able to like win this tournament where they were 5 years younger than the top people in there. And like their strongest person was 10 levels under the other team's weakest person.
But they won anyway because I guess
they won because Tang-san is a literal monster. But
I mean,
no, the ending of that was so incredible. Yeah, they won that tournament because the spider Tang-san has like a Invader Zim style spider leg soul bone that comes out of his back that's like obscenely poisonous. And his enemy was so strong that they literally tore that thing to pieces. But Tang-san is a ninja, and his real strength, apart from the fact that he's a nightmarishly strong soul master, his real strength is his hidden ninja weapons that he carries all the time. But you weren't allowed to use outside weapons in the tournament, so he never had hidden weapons to rely on. But the enemy shreds his soul bone, which is like shredding through an actual bone. It's like obscenely painful for Tang-san to go through it. But he reaches down and picks up the pieces of his poisonous soul bone and uses his ninja arts to like barely scratch 6 of the opponent's 7-man team. And all of them go down from poison.
No, wait. I'm sorry I'm asking you questions about the first Dalu, but
it's fine. We're going to need to lay groundwork because that's how this author writes. He lays groundwork and then takes advantage of the things that he's created.
That's smart. That's so smart. But once your soul bone is broken, like a piece of the soul, does it grow back? Does it rematerialize?
Yeah, it can be regenerated.
Okay, I'm just making sure it's just like he crippled himself to make a hidden weapon or something.
It's also a very special soul bone. It's like one of the rarest possible types, which there's like 6 slots for soul bones in a human body normally, and you can't have more than that unless you find one of these things that just doesn't fit into one of those slots. And they kind of all follow their own rules.
So, I mean, like, where are the slots? Is it like, is there one in the dantian and one near the heart? Or
no, it's actually skull, torso. Well, torso, skull, both arms, both legs.
Okay.
Can each hold one soul bone.
Interesting. And I guess you get to just pick which bone you use for the soul bone. Like a guy is like, my tibia is very strong.
Soul bones are really rare. Like they only appear from monster or like beasts that are of like a certain level. I want to say it's the 10,000 year and above, but also like only like 1 in 10,000 will actually drop a soul bone. So like it's really hard to get a large amount of soul bones. Most people, if they're given the opportunity, will take whatever they can.
Oh, you can't. I mean, why be picky when it's so rare, right?
Exactly. And that has somewhat changed in the second book because soul bones can be inherited. Like when someone dies with soul bones, they can be removed and passed on to future generations and that kind of stuff. So just through process of time, there are a lot more soul bones, but there's also a lot more soul masters that are of level to use them. So they're still very scarce. Yeah, no, honestly, like there is not a lot of like, you become really strong by cultivating in this world, and like you can do all sorts of ridiculous stuff, but like lifespans even at the top of cultivation are like 500 years for humans, and like that's only for people that really get up there. Most people are probably still dying in the like 150 to 200 range, and that's assuming they survive to old age, which most don't.
Oh, wow. So it's incredibly like once you become a soul master, it's just incredibly difficult to live.
Yeah, you either rise to the top or you die along the way. Typically speaking, it's a dangerous profession because I mean most of the battles between them are life and death, and most of them are like pledged to powers, so there's a lot of political bullshit going on. But anyway, soul rings, you kill soul beasts of a certain level, you get the corresponding soul ring. White is the lowest level, yellow is the second, purple is for 1,000 year, black is for 10,000 year, and red is for 100,000 year. All the soul rings are pretty much the same. In the sense of they give you an ability that you can then use at the cost of your soul power, which is both like your cultivation level and like a measure of MP, more or less. The higher level your ring, the more powerful abilities you have access to. Like the purple ring and a yellow ring from the same beast could give completely different abilities. but also the less power it takes proportionally for you to use that power. So like there could be a purple and a black ring that had basically an ability that was of the same level, but if it was on a black ring, it would probably cost like 5 to 10 times less soul power to use than it would on a purple ring.
If you don't mind me for confirmation, like what's the average amount of soul power a user will have, or does that depend on the ring level you have as well?
Your soul power grows. It is what you cultivate. So like when you've reached level 60 or whatever, that is level 60 of soul power. The better your cultivation system and the more potential your martial soul has, the more that might necessarily represent. Like two soul masters at level 60 are almost never equal. Either one suppresses because of attributes, or one is like just a higher tier person. And a lot of that has to do with the rings they've gotten. Because if you're a soul king, like with 5 rings, and you're like white, yellow, purple, somebody that's 4 rings but is yellow, purple is still probably going to beat you.
Gotcha. Even if, say, you started with like white, and then it's just like black.
Well, your body can't absorb rings. That's why Tang getting a black ring for his 4th ring was such a big deal, was because purple is supposed to be like the limit of what the human body can endure absorbing at that level.
Anything bigger than that, you should explode from energy, right? Or
exactly.
Gotcha.
Or the vengeful spirit of the beast you just killed to absorb the soul ring will fucking make you a cripple, or just take out your brain.
Wait. The wills of the beast are still in the rings?
Yes, they're not once it's in a typical sense. Once you've actually absorbed the ring, no, you have defeated it. It is your ring at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into the exception a little bit later. But one of the things that the first novel really touches upon. Oh, right. Sorry. I wanted to say one more thing. Red rings are incredibly important in that, unlike other rings, you get 2 abilities when you have a red ring from the same ring. They're almost always really ridiculously powerful. And also, as you absorb rings, the quality of your like body improves. Like you get faster and stronger and have like better meridians to absorb. So that's the other reason why absorbing like optimal level rings at each point is such a big deal, because one of the things that having a better body does is let you absorb higher quality rings. And it's like a whole cyclical spiraling kind of thing that, like, if you're not, there's so many people doing this, if you're not doing it the best way, you're going to fall behind and just be like a bit player.
Yeah. The rich and talented stay rich and talented throughout all of the cultivation here.
So yeah, I realized I was talking about beast souls. Beast souls, as I mentioned earlier, like give you like the power boost for your body, and typically have stuff that are attributed to it. And then there are tool souls, which are like basically an item or being that you summon outside of your body that has like physical form. So Tang in the first book, one of his, like, he has a plant and a hammer because he has twin martial souls, a very rare thing. And those are both tool souls. The plant, because it gets summoned outside the body, it like enforce him. And the hammer obviously is a tool being summoned outside the body. Neither one of the souls are really better than each other. It really depends on who's piloting it, more or less, more than the soul. There are martial souls that are not, that are like, you know, they express that very early on, where it's like, oh, your martial soul is a hoe, a normal, ordinary fucking hoe. You can just you can dig slightly better than a person who has a man-made one.
I don't know, man. I watched Over Gear and I watch a man kill a god with a hoe, bro. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Fucking Over Gear.
People sleeping on the power of farm tools. Their farm cultivation low.
But I'm saying all that. I mean, this is a lot of introductory stuff because it's going to be kind of necessary to talk about what actually happens in Douluo Dalu 2. But like, very much a lot of the book is world building. That's what makes that book great, is the amount of world building. And it teaches you all these things about, like, this is how it's supposed to be. These are the level of exceptions that need to happen and like coincide for this to not work out this way. Like they show you there's reasons why people are able to break these schemes, and it's hard to do. But as we go into the second book, that gets almost immediately thrown out the window, because they're like, all right, now we're going to show you the craziest shit that can happen. The main character has a mutated martial soul called a body soul. The main character's name is Huo Yuhao.
Is he related to Tang Sect at all?
He is not actually related to Tang San. He is the descendant of a different character from the first book, Dai Mubai, who was his martial soul was the evil-eyed white tiger.
Okay.
And he was the prince of one of the empires in the first book.
Oh, all right. So this guy's royalty.
Sort of. His dad is a duke in the military, but he kind of hates his dad because he's completely busy with the military, and his mom got killed by one of his other sons.
Wait, they had different mothers, I guess.
Yeah. And his mom was like very much like was like a maid kind of thing that like was a dalliance, but then he took it seriously. But he's so busy in the military that he literally has no time to check on his household or run anything. So she got caught up in the bullshit of Chinese feudal life and, you know, the harem politics and died directly because of one of his other sons, but largely due to the influence of that person's mother.
Of course.
But his mom like took super good care of him and like worked herself to the bone. Like there's one scene that gets talked about where like she bought like a baked good and she like hid it. It was a cold day, so she like put it inside her clothes to keep the warmth going, and it was like burning her.
Jesus.
But she wanted to give him something warm to eat, so she carried it all the way home, and that's why he like cares about this food, even though it's like a very simple peasant kind of food. But he decides like his whole thing is that he's on a revenge plot to fuck up this other son and make his dad apologize to his mom.
I mean, couldn't he have written a letter, be like, "Hey, father, at war, your harem is killing each other right now."
I mean, he doesn't trust his dad. Like, he's always kind of disliked his dad because he was an absent father. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest, like, that's the core of it. But his mom always really respected and loved his dad and was like, no, you should love your dad. And he's like, I can't believe you're ignoring a person who loves you this much. You're a piece of shit.
Oh, man. So the mother being more soft on the father, it makes the son even more upset.
So like this is his like this gives him like an iron will because he is determined, come hell or high water, that he is going to make this happen. But one of the other reasons that he's picked on is that he has almost no potential for cultivation. He has a body soul, like I talked about earlier, and body souls are a weird mutation where rather than having either a beast or a tool soul, part of your body, your physical body, is your martial soul. And in his case, it is his eyes. So his martial soul is the spirit eyes.
He's Sasuke. He's Sasuke from Naruto, is what you're telling me right now. He's Sasuke from Naruto.
Well, he's a terrifying motherfucker. So he goes in and he's got a soul tool, and soul tools are like the emerging form of technology in this world, because Douluo Dalu 2 at its heart is a story about the technological revolution of the Soul Land continent, for all that entails, for good and ill. It has a lot of world building from the first one, but in the I think it was like 3,000 years ago in the story of this world, so like 7,000 years after the first book, a third empire that was on its own separate continent due to tectonic shifts and stuff crashed into the continent that the first story takes place in and forms like a new mega continent. This place has soul masters that are not as strong and well developed as the place in the first book, but they did have things called soul tools, which they had developed they have like their place isn't rich in soul beasts, so their high tier soul masters kind of suck because of that. But they have a shit ton of precious metals, and using that, they've basically developed rudimentary forms of technology. Mostly, like most things do, the research predominantly comes out of, rather than being for civil use, it is for military use, because that's where the funding is.
It makes sense. I mean, you got to go to war. We have garbage soul beasts. So instead of depending on, nature giving us ridiculous soul powers, we got to make soul guns with metal.
Yeah. I mean, that is essentially what it is. And it's called the Sun Moon Continent, and that's their whole deal, is soul tool technology. And they've been kind of quiet because like it is basically established that it is its own empire and it's been able to maintain its sovereign borders and whatnot. But other than that, it is kind of seen as lower or lesser than the other two continents, or the other two empires, I should say. Although I think they actually split into 3 empires. One of the empires fractured over the course of the 10,000 years.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's like there's like 3 superpowers, one empire that stayed together, one empire that crashed in from into Pangea or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one that broke up and became, I guess, like a confederation of kingdoms or something.
No, it's two empires. It used to be like the Heavenly Do Empire, and it became like the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Do Tian Empire or something. I can't remember what the actual names were, but it split into, it's like one that split in half, one that stayed what it used to be, and one that is the new one. Mm-hmm. But this book is taking place right at the point in history where the advantage of soul tools and the research done into soul tools has grown so great that it's starting to overcome the difference in soul master quality, which puts this on like a very interesting point of history in the overall world building of this series. But one of the gifts his dad had actually given his mother is this third rank soul tool that's a knife. And so that was passed on to the main character. And he brings it into this forest of soul beasts, looking to kill any soul beast he can and try and absorb its ring so that he can at least try cultivation. But he literally started with 1 rank in soul power, which Tang-san in the first one started with 10. Like, he could absorb his first soul ring like the moment he started cultivation.
Oh, okay. So
and that not only determines how much soul power you start with, but also is a indicator of like your potential rate of soul power absorption.
So this guy's starting at literally level 1, like at the at the bottom.
Yeah,
you'll get lower than him.
Yeah, to the point where like that's part of the reasons why he's not taken seriously, or he feels at least he's not taken seriously as a son of the family, because he has, in the eyes of the world, 0 potential. And barring what happens in the first book, that would pretty much be true. But he goes to the forest to go and kill a thing, and he meets this baboon, and it's like a 10-year, like literally like barely a white ring beast. It still almost kills him. And he's just barely able to kill it because of the soul tool he has. But as he's going to absorb it, he hears this voice that's just like, yo, don't absorb that trash spirit. You want to change the world?
Oh, man. Here we go.
And so he starts communicating spiritually with this voice, and it introduces himself as Sky Dream Iceworm, which is a 1,000,000-year spirit beast. But he's about to, like, he's been attacked by things and is about to die. So he's in desperate straits. And so he sees Ho Yu Hao, and because Ho Yu Hao's eyes are spiritual based, elemental speaking, he's like the first person he's found that can actually be this person's host. So he says, like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to become your first soul ring, which shouldn't be possible because of the body absorption limits. But he is basically, what he's saying is, I am a 1,000,000-year spirit beast, so I'm kind of, nobody really knows what my deal is. I have my own rules, and I've kind of figured them out. He became a 1,000,000-year spirit beast. Like most 1,000,000-year things, or things that advance that high, do that by like devouring other life and like absorbing their power into their own to get quick advancements. But he was just a worm that was like trapped under a glacier, and he found this insanely good ice-based cultivation resource that was like literal mountains of it. And he just started slowly eating it until he couldn't eat anymore, and then he'd hibernate. And then he'd wake up and he'd eat more of the stuff, and then he'd hibernate.
What type of, so just the luckiest worm of all time.
Exactly. But even though he's a 1,000,000-year spirit beast, he's still a fucking worm, so he has like no combat abilities. So he gets out, and he basically, like, these other real actually powerful soul beasts just like captured him and started draining his vitality to grow quickly. And he got so pissed about being used as food that he's like, I'm gonna become a soul master and then raise him into a god so he can murder all of you fucks.
So this worm is lucky, gets captured, and he's so petty. Anybody who qualifies.
Well, spiritual martial souls are like insanely rare. So him having this is good, but he's like, you have no power potential or any of that, but it's fine. He's, by the way, like, he spent his entire first part of his life like working his fucking hardest to get to level 10, which was an insane struggle for him. But he gets there, goes to the forest, meets this worm, and the worm basically, he's like, I've come up with a new way for me to become your soul worm. You don't have to kill me. I'm going to become I'm going to put my soul into my ring and become an intelligent soul ring.
Oh, okay.
So he like seals his soul power into like multiple parts and takes the very smallest possible one to fuse with him and like hides the other ones in his body so that he can absorb them once his body's grown enough. He is the one that guides the soul ring into him. And when he's done, he has successfully, and he's not 100% sure it's going to happen. And it's super painful for the main character. But eventually he succeeds and he gets, technically there was a 1,000,000-year soul ring in the first book, but the first one that the continent has really seen, he absorbs this ring, and it is a white ring that has like gold lining, which means that everyone that sees it just assumes it's kind of a weird or a mutated 10-year soul ring, which is great cover for our main character. Because he actually has a 1,000,000-year soul ring, which, like I said, the red rings give 2 abilities, but this one gives 4. The 4 he gets are a like wide area like psychic blast that can like kind of stun people, but it depends on his spiritual power being stronger than theirs. If it's not, there can be like a backlash. A single target version of that, which is much stronger, but has a much higher chance of backlash, if I remember correctly. He gets like a domain that is one of the most insane things. It is basically a domain of like Jedi reflexes. It analyzes like muscle motions and like movement and like the wind and all the stuff in that exists within a certain space around him. And I think when it starts, it's like 30 meters or something.
Okay, that's insane.
And it's like it's predicting and giving you like to the point where like you don't have to be using your eyes to look around for stuff. You can perfectly tell where you are in this like zone of 30 meters that you have perfect information about, and that it is predicting the next things that are about to happen so that you can react to them.
They gave this man like aimbot, like
yeah,
auto detection aimbot.
And then his 4th ability is to spread that sense to other people.
So probably the greatest scout ever. He has that on top of having like his tools be his eyes.
Yeah, and that sense that he's using, it works in a circle normally, but he can also like focus it into a single direction and go way farther with it. So he is, despite being in this, he's trying to escape. He's got this ring, but he's super weak from the process, and he's trying to get out of the forest. And he stumbles upon these 2 other people. One is actually a descendant of the same clan that Tang San was from. I want to say her name was Tang Yu, but I think I'm misremembering that, but it's not a big deal. But she is from the Tang Sect. She is the leader of the Tang Sect. And when I went into this book, I was expecting the Tang Sect to have grown to horrific heights over the last 10,000 years, but it basically doesn't exist.
Wait, nah. There's no Tang San wouldn't let that happen.
Well, Tang San didn't have much of a say. Yeah.
Oh, wait. So I assume I'm missing some key information from the first one.
Tang San and his companions at the end, and this is super heavy spoilers for Dalu 1, so be warned. You move forward with forewarning. The 7 of them ascend to become literal deities.
Oh, okay. They're the pantheon. All right.
Yeah, so they exist in the divine realm, where one day in there is a 1 year in the mortal realms. So between the first books, Tang San has experienced about 27 years. But he's up in the god world, and he can't like directly interfere with the mortal world without fucking stuff up too much. But he meets this girl who is a descendant of the Tang Sect and has the blue silver grass.
Oh man, so like I guess this is like baby Tang San, like female Tang San.
Well, that's what you're supposed to think, but that's the point. Is like he has used his groundwork from the first book to create all these characters that you're supposed to instantly know and connect with, but almost none of them are copies of the people in the first book. They just have characteristics and things, which makes it a really gratifying read, in my opinion. Like I really liked him taking the components that he made in the first book and gave you a bunch of knowledge in so that you understand them inherently, and then put them into the second book, but use them in a different way. So you've got him who has the thing, and then her companion, who is the only other member of the Tang Sect. She inherited it from her parents who died, and he is the only other person that has joined the Tang Sect, whose name is Bebe. Shout out to Coiling Dragon.
Another baby. Yo, is he a shithead?
No, dude, he's like legitimately one of the coolest, most badass and put together characters in the story. He is from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan, which was one of the major clans in the first book, but got destroyed due to politics bullshit. Very few survivors, but it's good to see that they've made a resurgence here in this book, as their clan is still out there. But they basically, because of his spiritual vision, the main character becomes an insanely good cook because he can actually see inside shit and see how the heat is affecting it.
Okay.
So he grills fish, and they're like literally the most delicious fish in existence. And so the leader of the Tang Sect likes him so much that she tries to recruit him into the Tang Sect, and gives him like the Tang Sect has like one scholarship spot for new students to Shrek Academy, which if you've read the first book is a big deal. Tang-san was like the part of the generation that made Shrek last for the last 10,000 years.
Of course, Shrek would last 10,000 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tang-san and his friends were known as the Shrek Seven Devils.
That still tickles me so hard. Every time I hear it.
Anyone who's not aware of these books, that is absolutely a reference to the Green Ogre Shrek. That they don't try to hide it. Their school colors are snot green.
10,000 years of Shrek being loved in life. God damn.
Oh no, Shrek is a political power now. they have neutrality, like their policy is neutrality. They're against evil and people that like try and fight peace, but like other than that, they're not going to stand up against anybody. But like there are so many powerful, high-ranking alumni of the Academy that if anyone tried, like if an empire tried to attack Shrek Academy, they would fall apart internally as all the people that have risen to high ranks in that empire from Shrek just betray them.
Jesus.
And that's ignoring the obscenely large sort, like the people that run Shrek Academy are in and of themselves powerful enough to leverage that kind of political power. But it's fucking Shrek Academy. But anyway, they basically give him directions to, and they're like, you have to come to Shrek Academy and be a part of our Tang Sect. It's not just because I want to eat more of your fish, probably. So he goes to the Academy and gets his scholarship spot, and then basically goes to Shrek Academy, where he meets his version of the Shrek Seven Devils, more or less, which are a bunch of the people in his class. And it's really fun going through his class because they've got like a person who has Zhao Wu's martial soul, the softbone rabbit. There's a person in his class that has the 7-layer pagoda. That was that was Ning Rongrong's martial soul from the first book. And that's great because she's on like a rival team to the main characters. So like rather than that being a huge, like the best supporting tool soul in the world being on their side, they don't have to fight against it.
Oh, that's got to be fun. That's got to be an interesting thing to deal with. You got to deal with, well, like you, as readers of the first book, you understand how this works.
Exactly. And like, I loved reading this book after reading the first one because he used the knowledge of the first book as a building block to tell this story, which is why I said you don't have to read the first book before you do. But if you read the first book, it is much better because you understand inherently the weight of the things that are happening when like rules are broken or rings are absorbed out of order. But in the Academy, one of the people he meets and is, oh God, I can't remember. Her name changes like 3 times in the novel, but the name she gets called is Wutong, and I say she, which is actually a spoiler. She pretends to be a guy for a large part of the early parts of the book, so they get together as brothers. But they find out pretty early on. They find out this girl or his roommate, who is what she ends up being. They have like a perfect compatibility of martial souls. So they actually end up having martial soul fusion skills.
Wait, okay. All right.
Fusion skills in the last book are basically established to be like, it's a skill that you could use like 20 to 30 ranks more powerfully than your actual rank. And it requires compatibility of the soul. It's really rare. Like it's more common in like twins, people that are like that closely related. But for whatever reason, they have literally 100% perfect compatibility.
It's him and Wutong secretly related through their father sleeping around?
No.
Okay, I had to ask.
No, and no, actually, there's a prologue to the book where it kind of gives away who Wutong really is, which is literally one of Tang San's daughters from the Divine Realm.
Oh, okay. He can send. Tang San can send progeny down.
She's not a god technically, so like the rules are less strict for him. She had to like have like a lot of her memories like repressed and that kind of stuff for it to be possible.
Yeah, karma. You got to protect her from karma, right?
Yeah, more or less. But yeah, he sent down some exceptionally strong protectors to kind of take care of her on the mortal world. But she wanted to go play. She'd grown up hearing stories of their time on the mortal world, so she wanted to go play. So she went down there. And that is to the book's credit and also not, because one of the major complaints about this book is that the romance story between the two of them is too much of a center focus, and it is really like drawn out and frustrating.
Oh no. Like how frustrating are we talking here? Is it like a will they won't they the entire time?
No, I mean they want to, but there's always something in the way. Like at first it's that the main character is stupid and doesn't realize she's a girl. Then after that point, there's like a weird love triangle thing that happens, where like there's at no point when the main two characters are ever like either of them even consider not being faithful to one another. But there's not like there's another person that basically looks exactly like the first, the daughter, for reasons, but is like a different person, has a different martial soul.
I guess they put that in there just so they could have this drama, I guess.
No.
Or is it actually a real plot point for that character to be there?
It is a plot point for that character to be there, both how they got established as that and who they are in relation to the two main characters, which doesn't happen until much later. But like there's a point like where they're happy together, but then as they start trying to be physical with one another, like Tang San has literally left an aura of like chastity belt on his daughter.
Wait.
So like he'll go to kiss her and like the aura of a god will come out and slap him in the face. Yeah, so that's the funniest part of and actually Tang San has gotten some he is the angry father-in-law of this story. He keeps trying to get in the way of this kid because he's trying to take his beloved daughter. Which I thought was actually, it was hilarious, but it was frustrating for the main character. Eventually he just gets strong enough that he's like, no, I'm just going to kiss you and take it. I don't care. But
well, that adds more because that means eating intimacy. Like the Tang San is technically watching, right? Like,
not really. He more just like left the aura on like auto.
Okay, it's on auto. Okay, it's not like them up there, legitimately just spectating mortals for fun, you know?
Yeah, and then there's a real weird fucking part in like that's like in volume 29 of the book, where like they get caught up by the god of love, and it's like they have to take this really weird test to prove their loyalty and love. And it's like part of a big trap that their enemies have set for them to get them in this region. But it's just weird.
See, like the god of love, I guess the god of love is also in the god.
Yeah, also a deity.
Also a deity, like up there with Tang, the rest of them, right?
Yeah, there's like ranks among the gods as well, and that's a whole thing that I think is books 2.5 and 3.5 both deal in the divine realm rather than on the mainland continent.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 deals with the divine realm a lot as well.
Do they ever go back to because if I recall, Tang San was a transmigrator?
Yes. They actually kind of explain how that's possible because planar interaction happens in the 3rd book a fair amount. Gotcha. Not so much in the 2nd book. But due to the events that happen, that I've inferred happened from 2.5, the plane becomes a lot less stable in the 3rd book, and that causes problems that they have to deal with.
I take it the planes have the same divine realm, like the divine realm is for all of the planes, and not just, Soul Land's plane.
They are for a number of planes, typically, depending on the strength of the divine realm. There are multiple divine realms.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know that much about it because I haven't read the interim novels. So I'm just kind of getting the side information that we're given or spoon fed that happened in the main books, or at least the ones that have been translated. But they meet all sorts of fun people. Like there are a lot of different types of soul masters. There's like ones that are like you're like tank frontline fighters. There are ones that are like based on defense. There are ones that are like DPS or speed based people. There's ones that are control based, where like they're all about CC or like debilitating things. There's support, which can take multiple forms. That could be like healing. That could be like restoration of soul power. There's a weird branch of the support staff, which is like the food, which is people that can create food as their martial souls. One of the main characters in the first book was that as well.
Yeah. Is there like a clan of the sausage guys? Because is there more?
No.
Is there more sausage? People?
No, there is a food soul master, I say with quotes, in this book as well. But his martial soul is not actually food; it's cigars.
Okay, that's kind of awesome. What?
Yeah,
How
no,
does that work?
It's great. You just smoke the cigar and the effects happen. So he's actually this huge. He's a soul engineer who works on soul tools, and like in terms of research and development. So he's this huge, like giant dude who's just constantly got cigars in his mouth.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is like hammering away on some cannon. He's literally becomes known as like the artillery god of the Shrek Seven Devils.
So there is, in fact, soul guns. That's what I was waiting for.
Oh yeah, no, soul cannons are a big deal, and he's very like it is his specialty is soul cannons. But the main character also, because of his ability to so finely see and perceive things, is able to do really delicate things. So he also embarks upon the path of being a soul engineer, in addition to being a badass and being a martial soul, because once he's gotten the million-year soul beast, his whole aptitude changes, like day to night. He's like actually able to absorb power at a reasonable rate. Once he figures out he has a fusion with his roommate, they start like cultivating together, like holding hands and combining their power, and it like gives them both like 50% more power than they would have been absorbing alone.
Actual dual cultivation that doesn't involve killing your partner? Crazy.
Yeah, no, it's very weird. And so like he basically convinces his roommate, who wanted to be kind of lazy and play around, that like, no, we're going to be serious about this shit 100% of the time. And there's a bunch of stuff like he comes into the academy and people think he's shit, and he like beats his way to the top and makes fools of people and just works harder and gains the respect of all his classmates. Like he becomes the class leader almost immediately, and like 2 people try to challenge it for him and he just bodies them. But he advances along in his early time in Shrek and learns a lot about martial souls and all that kind of stuff. But in order for him to actually become a second-year student at Shrek, he needs to gain his second soul ring. And so his first soul ring's like, no, I got you. We're going to go on a trip to the extreme north with the horrifying icy conditions. The ice worm gives him like a set of his shed skin, which is incredibly cold insulating. So he just wears that and goes to like the coldest place on the planet to go and fight, because the guy's like, no, I'm going to get you a really good soul ring. Don't worry. And so he shows up at the place and like is barely able to endure. And the guy's like, here, just hide under the snow and I'll take care of it. And so the worm kind of like manifests itself and talks to this scorpion who is like a 200,000 year spirit beast.
Okay.
And he's like, I know you're about to die. I found a way that we can live longer. And so he tries to talk her into becoming the second spirit beast. But it is revealed that the reason he wants to do this is not because he was trying to give the main character Ho Yu Hao an advantage, but because he, as an ice worm, is in love with this scorpion, despite the fact that his race is food for her race.
What the hell? More romance, except he's gonna try to romance her as a living spirit ring or whatever, right?
But eventually he's able to actually logic her into being a living spirit ring like he is. And he's like, if this kid actually becomes a deity, then he can release us to actually live immortal lives. and we will live forever as part of a god instead of dying here in the next 100 years from just loss of vitality. Just like too sad of an end for us. So she agrees to become his second ring. Also gives him 100,000-year spirit bone, which is a torso bone, which is obscenely painful. It's like literally one of the most painful experiences in his entire life, including the stuff in the future. But instead of like it being sheltered for him, the worm like uses that pain to temper his will.
Okay.
And he starts pulling back, and the kid's like, no, I'm going to keep enduring it. And starts like self-wounding himself to train his will to an extreme level.
Okay.
Because he understands inherently from his original revenge plot that like he's going to need an iron will to be able to accomplish anything in his life. He's definitely the kind of person that is like, if I can't train to do this, then I'll train twice as much. And if I can't do that, then I'll train 4 times as much.
So like, this is definitely like hard worker man, the character.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, feels good because that's a quality he shares with Tang-san. Tang-san was literally up in the morning at 6 years old, absorbing the ultraviolet light from the sunrise to strengthen his purple demon eyes.
Jesus. I have to ask. Why did the scorpion spirit bone torso hurt so bad?
Because he was not at he is a baby in cultivation terms. So this is just way too intense for him to absorb. And the spirit, like the worm, was much more proficient at this process because of his 1,000,000-year cultivation age than the Empress was.
So this was like raw, what is it, 100,000? Is that a black or a purple?
It's a red.
That's a red. Okay. It's a red. So he just gets, that's the second ring, right? The red one?
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
But he doesn't decide to actually just have it be a ring. Actually, I'm sorry, I completely take this back. I just realized I misremembered. He gets a different second ring. He gets a ring that's like an illusion ring that allows him to disguise what color his rings actually are.
Okay.
As his second ring for his spirit eyes. She becomes his second martial soul.
Gotcha.
And then also, I think the original rings for that soul. So he had a soul that basically didn't have any attack power. He gains the second one that's an insanely powerful ice-based thing, to the point where like his ice is like the Phoenix's fire, where it's like we're approaching absolute zero with his ice kind of stuff. But basically he does that. He passes out for a while, barely manages to get back to Shrek on time. And that's like when his destiny kind of changes from him being honestly, the 1,000,000-year soul ring was the first part. But
definitely. Yeah,
and that's why he had to get his other ring that disguises his rings, because if his second ring or first ring on his second martial soul was a 100,000-year thing, he'd get strapped to a lab table and dissected.
Oh shit.
Because like people are gonna figure, like, not by good people, but there's evil people out there.
People are gonna want to know. Even Shrek Academy would do that, or
probably
no?
Not Shrek specifically, but it'd be difficult for them to protect him when he's out doing anything outside of school. So yeah, then he comes back and he gets picked to one of the big events in the first book was the Advanced Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, which is like a continent-wide contest that happens every 5 years to determine the best junior soul masters. And it's like, I think there's like either a 20 or a 25-year age limit on it. I think it was 25 in the original one and then got moved down to 20 by the time of the second book. And he goes, like, they get picked as the reserve team to go along with this group, but as they're on the way there, it gets revealed to them that one of Shrek's things is that they have, like, basically they are the secret police against evil soul masters in this world. So they get sent on an assassination mission to go kill an evil soul master that's been discovered.
Okay.
And in the course of this mission, the entire real team basically gets injured. Because this guy has like a corpse explosion art, and its strength is based on how many corpses are nearby, not the ring itself. And so like a couple of them just end up dying. A few of them get so badly injured that they're not going to be able to participate in the tournament. And so this reserve course with I think 1 or 2 of the actual members were still able to participate, and those not at the beginning. So they, as the reserve team, have to end up fighting this tournament, which they like just straight up murder people in. It's very brutal.
They just kill each other in this.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be possible because like the judges are very strong soul masters and they're supposed to be able to prevent it, but like they use somewhat underhanded means to like do shit so fast that they can't help it.
Like what kind of body count in this supposedly friendly young soul cultivator?
Well, I mean, the other thing is they're from the Sun Moon continent, and there are clearly political tensions that are rising between the different forces. Mm-hmm. But I can't remember an exact number, but like I think it was at least like 5 or 6, and many more people being like permanently or very long time crippled.
Brutal.
Yeah, it really was. But in the course of this tournament, like soul tools kind of come to light. Like a lot of people use them to great effect. And then they end up winning the tournament, mm-hmm. which is like, actually they have to pull some shit out of their ass to do that. But powered by Huo Yuhao's garbage spiritual. Like, it's so funny because he's literally a 2-ring master in a place where like most of the weakest other people are like 4, like high level 3 rings or 4 rings. And like, they're like, I think there's 2 or 3 people that are like ranked level 6 at this point in their lives.
In this tournament,
and their team wins.
And they're beating 6 rings with, okay. Just because they had aimbot. Clearly they had aimbot and they were cheating.
Well, I mean, he also does some bullshit stuff because he now does have a very strong ice-based ability as well. And they also have their fusion of their martial souls, which are like really strong. But it shocks everyone that, you know, a soul grandmaster doing nothing over here gets all the way to the end. But because of that, they essentially get named as the Shrek 7 monsters, which is typically the title reserved for whoever is going to the tournament, and they get to hold it for 5 years. But these people are given it for life, which is the first time it has happened since Tang San's generation.
So how do they determine who gets it for any amount of time? Like, you're just like, okay, you guys are so nice with it. No one else can take it from you.
It's an internal decision of the Academy. But it was almost unanimous that this would be the case. So then from that point, they are Shrek 7 devils, or Shrek 7 monsters, as I think they translated in this one. It's one that swapped. But Shrek's Academy as a motto is monsters among monsters.
Of course.
But shortly after he returns from this, the main character gets inducted into the Academy's ultimate soldier plan. Which the point of this is they want to create a soul master who is so efficient at so many different fields and is so potent in those fields that by himself he can change the course of a war-sized battlefield.
So they go to a 2-ring master to become the ultimate. I guess the performance in the tournament was so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he has actually gotten a 3rd ring by the end of the tournament, or not by the end, but before this happens, shortly before this. But he becomes inducted into this ultimate soldier plan. He ends up going to the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy on a transfer student kind of situation. And like this is really where like who he becomes kind of gets formed, because he gets like specialized trainers and like a huge amount of Academy resources. He's like spending like 1/2 of his day training as a soul master and the other half being drilled in soul engineering technology and research.
Is this like the first time they combined the 2 fields into one?
Yeah, like their idea was Shrek has recognized because of the incident that happened with their main team in the previous tournament and the fact of what happened in the tournament. Shrek basically is like, we've been biased saying that soul masters are going to beat anyone with soul tools, and we were wrong. If our guys had defensive soul tools, or if they had soul tools that allowed them to fly, this shit wouldn't have happened in the first place. So they kind of changed their boat, make the soul engineering part of their academy way more important, and start genuine research on stuff. But our main character like goes to the academy, uses his senses to secretly create blueprints of most of the high level technology that he's allowed access to.
Oh, so he's just stealing. He's literally a political spy.
He steals hundreds of blueprints.
Oh, Jesus.
Of tools that are like, because their country is probably like 100 years ahead in terms of research for soul engineering. So he does this. He shows so much promise that he basically steals one of their high-level researchers from the academy and convinces him to come join him in the Tang Sect instead. Because he comes to the idea that what he needs to do, the Tang Sect, it is established by this point, has gone into decline because of the rise of soul tools. Like, the main thing that they were known for was selling hidden weapons, and soul tools started to outclass hidden weapons in their usefulness. But he, because of his background, studied the Tang Sect mechanisms very deeply and decided to integrate the mechanical genius of the Tang Sect with the engineering of soul tools. So he starts creating hybrids of the two.
Yeah, that's the perfect evolution of Tang Sect hidden weapons.
Yeah, and this is such an attractive prospect to this high-level researcher that he defects, basically. But not before giving them the blueprints for, like, what is essentially what becomes soul batteries.
I mean, they can store soul power?
Yeah, well, that's one of the downfalls of soul tool technology, is that they need to be powered by soul masters. So only high-ranking soul masters can actually use high-ranking soul tools. So even if you make really strong soul tools, they can't be used by people unless they're strong enough. And their whole problem was that they weren't strong enough. And because of that, a lot of the people that are, even the people that are trained up to high levels, got there by abusing, like, spiritual medicine and that kind of shit that gives them no real potential moving forward. But yeah, this guy keeps getting, like, scarier and scarier because of this ultimate soldier plan and the training they've get into him, to the point where he basically becomes, like, a spy and an assassin. And, like, he can use his spiritual sense to find out everything that's around him. He gains another skill that basically lets him turn invisible. He becomes this, like, nightmarish, invisible person who can infiltrate into anything.
And you can't escape him because his senses and his vision will detect literally anything around him. You can't hide anything because he can see through it. And he has cutting edge technology with the highest cultivation ring possible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little strong. It's a little overpowered. Just a little bit.
I think in the interest of leaving some of this book to mystery, I'm probably going to stop talking about what happens around this point. But, like, it literally gets to the point where he threatens an empire with, like, stop, or I'm going to spend the rest of my life murdering every citizen of your empire. And you know there's literally nothing you can do to stop me.
What a threat. What a threat. What a threat. And he can do that because no one can stop him because he's invisible. He's an invisible assassin engineer. And he ain't going to run out of power because he has soul batteries on top of it.
I will say there is one of the things that got talked about in Soul Land 1 is that soul masters' lifespans are very small and soul beasts take a long time to get up to appropriate strengths. So, like, we are at the part of the world where, like, a lot of this book actually revolves around soul beasts and their concerns, because they're starting to realize that if things continue, they're going to go extinct. So this book also kind of deals with and creates a potential solution for that, which becomes very important by the time of the third book. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about what that is.
That's always been, like, an issue with, because everybody wants 100,000 year ring, right? But, like, there can't possibly be that many 100,000 year soul beasts. Like, there can't be that many.
In the first book, ignoring the main characters, I think there's, like, 3 or 4 people that have one red ring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's super difficult to acquire a red ring outside of, 1, because of the rarity of the beasts, and 2, because of the difficulty of actually killing them.
But, I mean, if you're killing all of the 100,000 year beasts before they can get to that point, you're not gonna have any of those when those 100,000 beasts die out anyway.
Exactly.
So it's like, unless book 3 is about soul beast farming, I would like a soul beast ranch.
You know, that does basically exist. But the solution that they kind of create in this book becomes a major plot point in that respect in the third book, because, like, in the third book there is basically, like, there's like a walled off area of the world that's like a nature reserve, and pretty much all of the real spirit beasts in the world live there.
I guess
all the other ones have been harvested. But again, they also have mechas and power armor in book 3, so.
Oh, Jesus. How many years forward is book 3?
Another 10,000.
And soul technology has evolved.
Yeah, no, book 3 is a kick. Main character is a blacksmith, and he's fucking badass.
If you're a blacksmith at that point in time, is he building his own mech? Like what's?
Partially, it's not a one-man job anymore. He's forging the metal for it. Other people have to design and shape and write all the arrays on it and stuff.
What are they fighting at that point? Are they still fighting each other?
Mostly humans, mostly evil soul masters. But like I said, there's also planar stuff that's starting to happen in that series. So,
what do I was getting kind of late. Let's do. We didn't get to talk about because
absolutely. Well, business before that, I guess, and then we'll jump into that.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to this point. If you're still there, we are the Trading the Path Ahead podcast. You can reach us on our email account, tigerrollercoaster@gmail.com.
Yep.
And or a much more convenient way to reach us would be to join our Discord.
There's a link in the description. We're always there, and we got a lot of people there, always willing to talk.
Yep. And speaking of that, thank you so much to our Patreon supporters, James and Yuki Okami, and I think also
we have
a new person that has reached the level of chosen, which is Kumquat Ninja.
Yep. So shout outs to Kumquat Ninja, and shout outs to everybody on the Patreon team. We're gonna be seeing what we can do for you guys. I know. So Yuki Okami, Kumquat Ninja, and all the new people who joined. We really appreciate you.
We really do.
We appreciate all of you.
Yeah, and in a broader sense, we appreciate everyone that's participating in our Discord and helping give us suggestions and feedback on our show, and also just getting to chat about random Asian web novels. It's a good forum if you don't have anyone to talk to about this very niche hobby that we love. You can also reach. We have a Twitter, but honestly, you'd be probably better off just. Going to Richards.
Yeah, just go straight to my Twitter at DJ God. I don't even have the login for the other one. I gotta somehow get that. But it's there. What is it? At Tiger Coaster?
Yeah, at Tiger Coaster.
Yeah, and you can treat me directly at DJ God. Hit me up.
Yep. But anyway, yeah. We didn't have time for we didn't have time to talk about the Ice Queen or the Ice Empress, who just is another one of the merry bunch of beasts that become Kuo Yu Hao's entourage. We didn't even get to talk about the giant beast wave that Shrek Academy has to defend.
Wait, giant beast wave?
We didn't even get to talk about the dark evil dragon Ditian. We didn't even get to talk about the girl whose martial soul is tangerines, who created tangerine-shaped bombs to mix in when she's throwing them at people.
What the fuck?
And we didn't even get to talk about the holy ghost cult.
Holy ghost cult. I want to hear more about the tangerine girl. What? Jesus.
Yeah, she's fucking badass, man.
That sounds awesome.
No, he meets her at the exchange program.
Life gives you lemons, you make bombs. I respect it.
You create bombs shaped like lemons and use the real lemons to hide their presence. But we didn't even get to talk about the fucking war. But yeah, this is a fun book. A lot of people say that it starts to, like, some of the stuff is trite, and I kind of get where they're coming from. Some of the love story, like, you're kind of like, all right, I get it, but just like move on. But I really love Hoyuhao's development and all the abilities he gets and just how fucking broken he becomes by the end of the series. It touches a lot more on like the upper levels of cultivation than the first book did, and the rules behind that and how it actually all works out. So it was just another book filled with like really good world building, and like really the best part of this book to me is how much the events of the first book shaped the history and plot setting of this book.
I mean, it seems like a continuity fanatic's wet dream, since you get all of these callbacks and all of the stuff that's technically relevant, and you just build up.
Yeah, and it's like it's great because like the things that just exist as facts of this world are like the very obvious, like it's very clear to draw a train of, oh, this happened in the first book, it developed this way until it finally arrived at this point in the 10,000 years later. And like some of them are awesome and good and exactly what the people in the first book intended, and some of them are like really bad and developed in horrible ways and were like unforeseen consequences of their actions. So it's really entertaining. I love this series. I keep watching the animated version of this and introducing new people to it. I've addicted like 10 people to it that have watched the entire 182 episodes that are out currently.
I do have it on my list to watch. You told me about it, and I'm like, I'm gonna get to it. It
is amazing in how closely it actually follows the events of book one. There are some things that are kind of shied away from because of censorship and Chinese broadcasting laws, but like they do it in a way where they still get as much of the original intent of the scene as possible. And they don't shy away from going to the things. They just maybe cut it, like shoot the camera angles in a way that makes it slightly less visceral than it was supposed to be. But like it is, I keep waiting for it to diverge from the actual plot of the book, and it still hasn't after 182 episodes.
That gives me a whole lot of hope. I need to go check that out. And I kind of hope more web novels get things that are animated.
Dude, I've actually... They have been coming out with a lot. There's a more anime type one that's for A Will Eternal.
Really?
Yeah, which is fun, but I haven't watched that much of it. I'm watching. There's one that's very similar to this in that it's like 3D CGI with really detailed characters and obscenely good backgrounds for stellar transformations.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's huge.
There's also Battle Through the Heavens has a one like this.
Where have I been? Have I just been for rock? like...
Yeah, I'm kind of finding out about a lot of them as well. And there's a lot of other books. I keep being like, oh, I need to look and see what this is so I can see if I've actually read it and need to watch it. Yeah, they've all been pretty good so far. I'm very happy. Stellar Transformations, I'm showing some of my cousins.
I gotta watch you. I'm gonna watch that tonight. I'm gonna go download that, watch it on the plane when I fly out this weekend. That's crazy. That gives me a lot of hope. That means I'm gonna get an animated Coiling Dragon, and then I can freak out so I can just fangirl about
Coiling Dragon. I love you so much.
Oh man.
But thank you guys so much for listening. This was definitely a long one. And honestly, I probably could talk another 2 hours about this book and still have way more to say, because it is a book that is like its predecessor, built upon like one bit of information that they give you a time, and then they compound upon that, and then they compound upon the new thing they've created, and then they compound upon that.
It definitely seems like a great time.
I really enjoyed it. This was the book that actually got me to up my membership at Wuxia World, so that I could have more books that are completed to read, because this one is completely done.
So that means you don't have to F5 Sect this. You can just read it.
But then you might start the third one, and you will have to F5 that, unless, well, I don't know, maybe not. Like I said, I think it's ending soon, although that might be anywhere from 50 chapters from now to 300. Who knows? And it could be more than that, too. I could just be misreading the signs, but I know the pacing of these novels pretty well now.
I mean, it is interesting when you think it's the end and it's suddenly like, nah, this is only the beginning. I know that happened a lot in Desolate Era. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
I think
Jesus,
this is gonna
Death Lair did
end.
do that.
I thought it ended like easily 7 times.
I think there is actually an anime of Desolate Era as well.
Oh no.
I've only watched like one episode of that, and it mostly dealt with his reincarnation from being a Chinese jobber. But so I have no idea if that one's actually good. Some of these might be of questionable quality, but the Douluo one, at the very least, has been spot on. It's been going since 2014.
Jeez. Oh, I'm gonna go pull that up today. I got a lot of things I'm gonna watch today.
The first 130 episodes of Dalu are on YouTube from Tencent officially for free. Past that, there's a membership you have to join to watch it.
Is it
There's
translated?
other sites you could do it on though. Yeah, no, they have it all English captioned.
Okay. Well, go check that out. Get the free stuff while you can, boys.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's Tencent, so you never know.
You never know.
But again, we thank you all so much for listening, and at some point in the future, I'll talk about Soul Land 3, but not next episode.
Hopefully, we can do Reverend Insanity next episode, or
Yeah,
next time we record.
I'll try and read more of that book. I stopped early on, mostly I think because something else came out more than a lack of interest in the book itself. But then it kind of fell through the cracks.
I'm straight addicted. I'm gonna try to finish it. On my holiday here, and honestly, happy Thanksgiving to all of you watching.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Yeah, I'm rereading 9-Star Hegemon Body Art from the beginning hopefully for an upcoming nights or something of that if we actually get around to it.
I want to record that so bad, but like things are, I want like a good stopping point in the novel to do it, but things keep escalating constantly.
I mean, the whole book though, right? Like it hasn't stopped
the entire time. It just keeps.
It's all rise.
By the time this thing gets to its infernal realm, if Nine-Star Hegemon Body Art has their infernal realm, for real, it's gonna be like some Gurren Lagann shit. Like it's gonna be cultivators the size of universes, because that's the only thing I can imagine happening in that story.
Yeah, I have no idea where the fuck that series is gonna go. I wish I did, but like I like if I think about it, I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna let it surprise me. That'll be fine. I'm sure wherever it goes, though, I'm sure there'll be many face slaps.
Yeah, so many divine. Sometimes at work, I'm like, man, I would love to just to have the gall to just.
That one scene where he met a guy and they were like, no, get down. How dare you move out of the way of my slap? All right, this is not a 9-Star Hegemon Body Art, and we're already way too long on this one anyway. So.
All right. See you guys later. We'll see y'all next time.
See you next time.
Tiger Roller Coaster Productions. Tigers are scary. You try to get off.